while you fiddle with your sideways alfalfa.
Yeah. Actually, what's funny about that is like I actually have these two cowlicks in the back of my head that
Same.
the people who cut my hair, they're just like, these are such a pain to cut. And like, simmer
You're
down.
like, try living with them.
Exactly. It's just like, yeah, well,
try living with them, people. Give me a break.
It's like,
Jeez.
no matter how much I like, pat the hair down, it's always going to be poofed up. Like so.
Poof.
There's like so there's this weird middle ground. It's like I either cut it really short to overcome them, or I grow them long, and I can't do that. So I've never been able to grow long hair.
Except you need to allow, Cormac. You need to work on allowing.
Yeah.
There was this good quote on Twitter that a friend of mine sent me today. Don't live in peace. Live in truce with all of your conflicting ideas.
And I like that. Live in truce.
just surrender and allow.
That is like the subtitle to architecture. Just live in truce.
Live in truce. It is because I was watching some videos earlier today that were talking about some tech products and stuff, and it didn't come across it didn't paint the architects in a as good a light as I would have hoped.
Great.
And it was an engineer speaking, and the engineer was like, the architects want to make a beautiful piece of art, and the engineers want to do it faster and cheaper and pump them out, and I'm just like thinking, and then she says, it's all about the compromise.
Yeah.
which is true.
Which is true, because
she got there, I didn't necessarily enjoy.
I can't tell you how many meetings I've been on over the past few weeks, few months with new user groups and stuff, and it really is all about the compromise. It's like, okay, you want this big, huge idea. We want that. But you're not going to be able to get all of that. So it's, what is the compromise? What can the building, what can the engineering, what can the architecture afford to give you that gets you close to what you want without, like, not saying without giving you what you want. I mean, we always try to give them what they want, but because of, this, we've said it 1,000 times. I mean, this is an existing building, really, really low floor to floor height and all this other things. It can only give you just so much. And I think most of my job has been mitigating that middle ground. Like,
they've watched too much HGTV. It's like, let's just pop this ceiling up and we're going to expose the beams and we're going to get amazing daylight. And you're like, well, actually we're in like a mid-floor and the floor to floor height.
Exactly. Well, I've heard so many times, it's like, well, in my old space, I've got all of this and I can do this and I can do that. And you're like,
that's your old space.
This is your old space was probably designed to actually accept being a lab building. And this, on the other hand, was not. This was a 1960s building with low floor to floors, and it had window units rather than a central system. And so, and now you're trying
thinking creatively enough. I'm going to just call you on the carpet right now. We can punch holes in floors, and we can remove the program above because it's not as important as the program that needs to go into this space. Am I right?
You know how many times we get called on the carpet just for it's just like, we've really got to think,
we need you to think more creatively.
Yes, it's like, we need to start thinking outside of the box. You got to tell me what we can do.
Let's get out of the box. Let's definitely, in your 1960s low floor to floor height box, let's get out of that box.
Which of course, all of the existing drawings and all of what was assumed to be the existing conditions was a flat out lie. And, to make it.
But what they mean when they want you to get out of the box is they want you to get out of the physical real world constraints because you're telling them something they don't want to hear. right? That's the box that they want you to get out of.
Sure.
And present them with a new image of something they do want to hear. And that's all up to you to get out of that box and do. Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of boxes, Cormac,
I mean, what?
This episode, I was doing a little bit of research before we hit, there's your box. Before we hit record, this is the beginning of year 12 of the Archispeak podcast, which is a box of sorts. That was a good segue, right?
Yeah. Where we need to add like the little confetti coming down.
There you go. Yeah.
Didn't
Streaming confetti.
I believe we
Yay!
published our first episode, or we started our first year on my birthday, February 3rd of whatever 12 years ago was, 2012.
Yep.
And
2013. So we did it 11 years ago. This will be season 12. All the math works out. Trust me. I'm a mathematician.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, it's crazy though. I did not, we never had a plan. I mean, this is accidental on some level. And here we are, still going strong, the strongest ever.
Yeah. No,
maybe. I don't know. I mean, I just made that claim. I don't know if it's true or not.
No. It is. The strongest ever.
Do you feel it?
I feel strong. I feel
nice.
I was going to say, back in the day when we first started recording, oh my gosh. Honestly, I remember a couple of different people would say, oh, I'm going to go back and listen to all of the episodes. I'm like, don't.
Shaking your head.
Like,
yeah.
You
You just start shaking your head immediately. You know what they're about to say. You just say, no, just go back a little if you want. Don't.
Exactly. Like,
don't go way back.
There's 12 years of it. And in the early years, we were doing it every 2 weeks and, not every week. But I think that the first years were audio-wise, oh my Lord, I was.
Well, we were learning how to podcast. Everybody was learning how to podcast back then.
12 years ago, everybody was learning how. Now everybody is.
Right. Now you can buy a really good microphone for really cheap on Amazon and have it the next day. You could start podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Get a good webcam if you're going to do video. Get a good microphone if you're going to.
It's easy now.
Exactly.
These kids don't know how easy they've got it.
Exactly. Back in the
These
day,
kids today.
when podcasting was black and white.
Mm-hmm. The other way to say it would be like 8-bit mono. That would be the audio version of black and black. It wasn't 8-bit.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah, whatever that. Yeah.
64K. Yeah, that's what we'd pump it out at the high quality of 64K mono audio files. It's gotten a little bit better. It doesn't really matter. It's just spoken word. People can hear us. That's all.
Yeah.
And now the tools have changed a lot. Our pipeline, our workflows have changed a lot, but nobody needs to be any wiser about that because all they need to do is receive the podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
and enjoy.
I remember how much we would all complain when we were work sharing the editing about how horrible, it's just like, I just spent 6.5, 8 hours on the edit for a 35-minute show or a 45-minute show, and you're just
right. Welcome to architecture. The perfectionist architect there is editing to the nth degree.
I will still say that I still edit certain of my own kind of, just like, do I really sound like that? No, I'm going to fix that.
You have the luxury of being in charge of the design of the output. So you get to make that.
I'll dumb Evan down a little bit.
Yeah. He said something smart. I'm cutting that out. and then the part afterwards where you repeat it. Just go with that part. So
exactly.
That's how it usually goes, Cormac.
Like,
So yeah, I mean, did you see this milestone coming? Have you had it marked on your calendar, or are you like my wife, who and I'm like, happy anniversary, and she's like, today?
I, yeah, today's like this year's interesting bunch of milestones. I mean, I'll be hitting my 25th wedding anniversary. My
Mm.
wife will turn ages, years
Yeah,
old.
you're not allowed to say.
You're not
Yeah.
allowed to say, but which is a big milestone for her. I mean, we were just talking about it, because we, we're realizing that this year was our 25th wedding anniversary. That we were like, how old? What she had just turned 22 when I met her, and
You're just making it easy for people to do the math
well,
here.
see, exactly. See, I could say it without saying it.
You can say it without saying it, and you can edit this part of the podcast.
And I
So
can
you
edit this part
have
out
the
if I
final
so
say,
choose, which
if you choose,
she ain't
which you
listening.
probably
So
won't.
no,
Yeah.
I won't.
Good thing. That's a good thing she's not listening. She'd be like, "What is the point?"
Exactly. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, so you didn't say I was hitting the big 5-0. Like, no, I didn't. I didn't say it.
Boom! You just dropped it.
Exactly.
Jeez.
So
Careful, lightning may strike. She knows all.
Well, it'll be a lot slower because she's older.
Slow lightning. That's what we call her. Slow lightning. Yeah, you can.
What's your
All you have to do is
superhero
stay
name? Slow
one step
lightning.
ahead of her. Slow lightning. So what's new in architecture land that's different from 12 years ago? I mean, we've
Oh, wow.
gone through a pandemic.
Yes.
You're fully remote.
Yeah.
I don't work at the firm that I used to work at. We're both licensed.
Yeah.
A lot of milestones have happened along the way.
Yeah.
Those are just the ones off the top of my head. I mean,
And just, like the way we work, right?
mhm.
12 years ago, it was everybody butts in seats. Project teams were not remote. Didn't have the luxury. I mean, we may have had teleconferencing, but it wasn't something that was so widely used. If we had to have a meeting that was a teleconference, it was people knew how to use the phone.
Yeah, you had a Polycom in the middle of the
Yeah.
desk, right, in the conference
Yeah.
room, and it was or a regular phone on speakerphone with the door closed,
Right,
and
right.
it was not at all. So technology's changed a lot, but like as far as the
Well-
practice goes,
Well,
and
even
project delivery, I mean, it hasn't changed that much, has it?
there's slowly but surely, and we've talked about this, the slow but surely adoption of digital rather than paper submissions, things
Mhm.
like that, which hopefully are the precursor for other delivery methods in the future.
Maybe, yeah.
We are now, it's funny. It's like, think about how many different technologies have come about throughout the course of architecture and even the course of our careers, or just slightly before our careers, CAD, BIM, and all of these other things. And now what's the next big evil that everybody's worried about? AI.
Yeah. Well, and it's working its way into CAD and BIM and
Exactly.
every possible tool that you can
And
use,
that,
so that all these companies can seem to be relevant.
So, it's back then it was like hope to facilitate and make us more productive. And hopefully this is to facilitate and make us more productive. There are so many people out there sharpening their pitchforks and getting their torches ready for the AI is going to take us over. It's going to do away with the architect. And it's just like, no, it's not. But even
I think it does make the possibility of disruption from outside of architecture much more of a threat than internally, because I think the perspective that you just shared is like, how slow things are to change within the profession.
Yeah.
Which I agree. I mean, there are definitely some firms, the big firms with lots of resources, who are actively working on this kind of stuff. But most of the profession is not that, right? So I would probably agree with you that from the perspective from within the profession is slow adoption, if adoption at all.
Right.
There's still people, we see them on the Entre Architect Face group. People are just now thinking about going into BIM, right? Just starting.
Just now. in
And
2024.
right, and so I agree with that perspective, but I do think it is making it even more of a potential threat from the outside to just say, what do we need architects for? And that is kind of a,
Yeah.
that's an extreme for sure. And it's not, that switch won't flip overnight either, but it just makes it even more of a potential that I think people should be paying attention to.
Well, if we struggle to answer the question of what do we need architects for now, in like say the time, we'll call it pre AI. So 2024 PAI.
It's funny because AI has been worked on for decades,
Oh,
right? But
exactly.
now it just popped through the surface and took everybody by surprise. So yeah, we are aware of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so there's
yeah.
people listening who are like, what, this is not
But I
new.
mean,
But
let's just say
it's new for most people.
when
Yeah.
I say PAI, or pre-AI, it's pre-adoption as the norm.
Yeah.
Whereas like we had our pre-BIM before it was the adoption of the norm, which is still, kills me that there are people out there who haven't adopted some form of it. And I get that, people are like, well, if I'm just going to do an addition to a house, why do I really need to invest in a software that's so cumbersome to do something so small? I totally get that and totally agree with that. There are the right tool for the right job, right? And so the question is how are you going to implement AI as the right tool for the right job? And is it going to be something that you need? You might not even need it at all. But it's interesting to see people afraid of things before they really get on there. And then we've got, friends of a show that are out there that you would like, it sort of took me by surprise that like Bill Martin, who had just done a seminar for AIA New Jersey on AI. And because he's mostly a custom residential guy, and you wouldn't really see how he could leverage or use AI within that, but to basically
Sole practitioner too.
Right? And a sole
just,
exactly. So you almost are like, why do you need it? But to be able to show people how they can leverage it from the sole practitioner to the large firms, is that's kind of the forward thinking that we need to bring to the table, and not just, knee jerk reaction. Oh my God, AI is going to take our job.
I think that knee jerk reaction goes both ways. There's the early adopters, which are all over it and singing the praises and showing the potential and all those things. Then there's the knee jerk reaction of, yeah, it's going to kill me. I'm going to die. So it's the fight or flight kind of mentality, lizard brain kind of stuff. And I do feel like we need to be somewhere in the middle of that because, I mean, so for instance, like I said earlier, it's so maybe the tools are different, but 12 years ago, architects, 80% of architects who are doing, sole practitioners or very small firms were using AutoCAD and SketchUp. And I think a lot of people are still using those same tools. So that's why I said, I don't know if the technology's changed much. Obviously, Revit was around for a long time already at that point. 2012, like the firm that I was at adopted Revit 100% in 2009. So it had already been going, and we're still using that today, right? Which, I would say that the complexity of those projects has gotten more and more, but we haven't changed a lot. Massive sea change. But now we're seeing AI in every single tool. And so to talk about SketchUp for a second, right? We're seeing AI diffusion rendering built into SketchUp, and we have sole practitioners who already used tools. So the new features are meeting people where they are. Right. And at the same time, so it gives people the ability to dabble and to play with it and see what they like and don't like about it. But at the same time, are those people reading the license agreement? I haven't checked this myself. I mean, I know the answer is no, right? No, everybody just clicks OK.
Yeah.
But there is an exchange of information happening when you type in a prompt and get a response. You are sending information to Trimble, and they are because all the AI rendering is happening in the cloud. So there has to be an exchange. You can't do
Right.
this if you're not connected to the internet and if you don't send data to Trimble.
Right.
And that's how all these companies are trying to get ahead, right? Is by
Right.
they already have a huge user base. They're plugging it into a tool that tons of people already use, and it's basically like free training at that
Right.
point,
Right.
right? They're not having to purchase or make a licensing deal with some other training. They've got their own users opting in to do that. So,
Yeah.
and so this is why, I position this as, okay, there's the Luddite idea, right? Which is like, it's going to kill us. And then there's the champions who are out there pushing forward at whatever cost. And then there's kind of this cautious, you do need to read the license agreement for these tools. You also need to know what they're capable of and if it's useful and valuable to you as a practice. And if you're willing to make that compromise. Look at us, we brought it back.
There we go.
But the main tool set that we're using, although I agree everything is kind of being upended right now with AI, has not changed very much in the last dozen years. I mean, the main tools are still the main tools. This episode is made possible with support from Chaos Enscape. Enscape is a plugin software that simplifies real-time visualization for us in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Whether your go-to design application is Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, or Vectorworks, Enscape lets you instantly create high-quality renderings by syncing data from your 3D model without additional import or export needed. Easily navigate every aspect of your design in real time and identify and resolve any issues you come across quickly. Plus, you can immerse your clients in VR to provide a tangible sense of the project. Enscape is the trusted choice of over 500,000 monthly users across 150 countries. They are soon launching something special that will make your 3D workflow the best 3D workflow for a special price. In the meantime, you can experience it for yourself for free at chaos-enscape.com/trial-14 or simply by Googling Try Enscape. Thanks to Chaos Enscape for their support of this episode. And now let's get back to the conversation.
It's interesting that you went to the user agreement because one of, I don't know, couple, I don't know, like maybe a month or so ago, I started dabbling with that AI image generator that you had, turned me on to, and we had talked about on the show. And so I'd kind of gone through and was messing around with things and got to a handful of images. I was like, wow, I'm like pretty impressed at how, it was like starting with something that was very close to the sketch that I'd created, and then just these iterations of prompts and stuff that got it to something completely different. And, I posted it, kind of singing the praises of it. And people started to some people were like, oh, this is amazing. I can't wait, to either try this out. And then of course, like every friend of mine who is a traditional artist, they were like, absolutely against it and everything else. But the thing that, where I'm going with this is that they are very copious posters on like Instagram and Threads and all of these other tools that get their artwork out there, get their artwork noticed and everything else. They're freely putting their work out into the ether, not paying attention to the fine print and the ownership of things, where, when people are like, oh, I can't believe that Facebook is doing this or Facebook is doing that. You're like, well, you're the one who decided to join a free service and freely put your information out without reading the fine print on how they would use it. Same thing with all of these image-based social medias is like, how did you go through and see what they're going to do with it? Or, so you're as culpable in giving away your artwork as you are with fighting the fact that they're going to use your artwork.
Yeah, it's the same argument, but I see what you're
Kind of a
saying. It's
yeah, it's a weird catch-22 where it's like
yeah.
obviously we don't want and I'm going to be on their side, is like, I don't want somebody to steal my artwork to use it as something to generate their work and then them pass off their work, my work is their work kind of thing. I absolutely don't want any of that. But in turn, though, when I post things out there in the real world and I'm not paying attention to all of the fine print of how they're going to use it, it's sort of on me, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I ignorantly let them do it.
And image generation is just one aspect of all this, right? Like there's so many different variations on these tools. One of the ones that I think is going to become, we touched on this in our last episode when we mentioned Apple Vision Pro
Yeah.
and spatial computing. And I mean, we've been doing VR for a while
Yeah.
now, and this isn't necessarily new, but I do think that there's some interesting potential with these headsets to then come back and provide a feedback loop for what the real built environment is like compared to what is possible in a virtual environment.
Right.
We design physical environments, but we use digital environments to get there, right? So we're designing full 3D models in whatever software package you are so that you can coordinate the drawings, but we see the potential in what that enables us to do to coordinate things, right? Especially on complex, large projects where there's so much riding on cost because the projects are so big and involved to get the coordination right. Structural, HVAC, architectural, all of the different disciplines. And what's interesting is that we're creating this byproduct to get to the real thing, right? And this byproduct is spatial in nature, right? Because you could use it as another potentially revenue generating thing that you don't use it for now, which is these spatial environments that people enjoy through a VR headset. And I had a conversation with John Manicheri on my other podcast, and he's the founder of a startup called Treasury, and they are creating a licensing mechanism for 3D spatial assets. So you create 3D spatial assets. Your firm does.
Right.
They own them. They own the copyright on those. I create them. Right? I've designed buildings, on my own side projects or whatever,
sure.
and all for the purpose of truly getting built. But there is potentially, if that building is interesting, and there's definitely architecture firms and star architecture firms that create buildings that are highly interesting and definitely kind of, well, they're intellectual property, but they're probably even more so for certain firms that have a brand identity that you associate architecture with.
Yeah.
And so if you could hold your whatever meeting or presentation or something, say in a Zaha building, would you want to do that? Right? It's a pretty cool environment, right? Sure. We talked about it on the last episode with the Disney Plus app as just a quick example, right? Which is I can watch Star Wars in Luke's land speeder as a digital environment, right? And so there's a 3D asset there that has some, I mean, obviously it's in the Disney app, so they have the licensing rights to do that. There's potential here. And I think, getting back to how is the output that we create, whether you're an artist or you're an architect, monetizable in new ways, I think is kind of interesting. And so I'll put a link to Treasury in the show notes. It's just launching, and it coincides with the launch of the Apple Vision Pro headset just because it's good timing. But it is interesting to think about other ways in which architects could also leverage the things that they make along the way for other potential income avenues.
Right.
Do we have buildings that are good enough to do that? I don't know the answer. But I think, when it goes back to like this, using this stuff as training, and I'm nervous about my models getting out there and being used for training. This licensing thing starts to actually make a lot of sense because it proves ownership of it as mine.
Think about how we could expand education through being able to license these 3D environments. And so when we're talking about somebody creates a model, a full 3D photorealistic rendering of Villa Savoy, and we just happen to be teaching something about Villa Savoy, about Lake Horb and all these other ones, and we just
and you could go there.
Yeah, exactly. We can't.
You could go there.
We can't, like, we could walk the grounds. We could like walk around, maybe not necessarily touch, unless you have like the gloves that kind of have some like sensory,
some haptic feedback.
Exactly. But I mean, I used the example of one time where I was silly enough that when we were assigned a project and I was supposed to do a project, like write a paper and pull together graphics and a presentation about a specific Mies building in Detroit. And I hopped in the car and drove. Like, it's just like, there is no way for me to like truly write something about the experience of this place without experiencing the place. I can look at pictures in a magazine or a book or whatever all day long, but I'm never going to feel the space. And we can get closer and closer to actually feeling the space in this kind of this virtual reality of, things like this. And I see such an upside to it. I mean, does it discourage, travel? I mean, not every kid that goes to architecture school can afford a trip to France. So,
true. I agree. And I think every architect should give anybody who wants to tour their building the ability to do that from wherever they are. And I think that is, I mean, that shows
about the marketing aspect.
People who have never put on a headset do not understand how real it feels. And so is it real? No, it's not real. But it is really close. Like, it's incredibly close. And it doesn't even have to be photorealistic. Your brain makes the leap and it says it's okay for it not to be perfectly photorealistic. It still works. Right. And it's just getting more and more close to photorealism all the time.
Right.
And it's absolutely incredible. And I agree with you. Like, if what is the difference of doing a case study between researching plans and sections and photographs and all those things for a case study when you're in architecture school, or what if you could just go experience the building?
Right.
And you also have the ability to like throw up a section plane and push it through the building and understand spatial relationships right there. It is a different way to experience the concepts of architecture and what architecture can do and can be. I think
could you just imagine being able to like stand in the center of like, Villa Savoy and say, okay, I see the space and all of this other stuff. How are they running the mechanical system? How are they doing this? And then be able to like toggle to section view where you're basically sitting there and you're staring at a section view where you're seeing the duct run and all of this other stuff, where you're understanding things. Because, one of the biggest disconnects that I think we all know when we're kind of learning how to design buildings are not all programs teach you how to design all of the services in the building as they're teaching you.
Why am I laughing right now?
Yeah.
Why would I be laughing right now?
and so to be able to understand, it's just like, well, why is that ceiling so low? Okay. Swipe, you can see the section, you can see all of the different things. Or when I'm sitting in a meeting with some of these user groups and they're like, well, I don't understand why I can't do this. It's just, okay, here, boom, you're in your space. You can see the space. You see, I can fit, my biological cabinets here. I've got my vent hoods there. I've got all of this stuff here. But why is it so difficult for me to put this in this space? Zoop. And, here you go. And you're now looking at a section with all of the ductwork and all of the cable trays and everything else that's up above the ceiling. That's just like, now I understand. So now they understand the compromise.
Look, bring it back in. I have a short digression. I need you to define biological cabinets real quick.
Biosafety cabinets.
For those following along closely, I was just tripped up when you put those two words together.
Biological, yeah. It's where they put the bad children.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've spent time there before.
I've been
I get
there.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It's time out for bad
and so
architects.
then there's this, okay, let's take this to another degree, which is privacy and security. There's definitely
Right.
some buildings that not everybody should be able to go wherever they want,
Right.
right? In
Sure.
that virtual space, let alone the physical space, right? There's physical barriers in buildings, and for if like it's a stadium, you can't see how to get to a certain place because
Right.
it would compromise the security
Sure.
of the building. Same thing applies to this, and I'll just throw it out there. Like this is also being addressed in these digital assets
Yeah.
because you, as the architect or as the owner of the physical building, need to be able to control that kind of a
Oh,
thing, and
true.
that's
Yeah.
a part of the system as well.
Yeah. I mean, but also think about the training that staff in large complexes can do through this.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
you
know?
need to be able to basically assign permissions
Exactly.
to whoever's going to view
Exactly.
it for a different purpose.
I mean-
and that's another layer of complexity that people need to start thinking about because like if it's a courthouse, you don't necessarily want to let everybody know
Exactly.
how back of house works,
Right,
right?
sure.
But or a prison or a hospital even
Right.
or a stadium, right? There's so many different use
Nakatomi
cases. But if
Plaza.
you're training staff, yeah, like you would want them to know
Right.
exactly how to do it. If it's not built yet, it's under construction, you need to be really going on day one when the door is open,
Right.
and people can actually feel like they know the place already. I think that has an interesting potential to unlock.
Yeah, because if you think about we've talked about this as like the future of the way that we permit things, and because we're already creating a 3D asset, right? And if a fire department needs to understand how they are to access a building, where are the rated corridors? Where is the rated vestibule from your, like, what is the route from outside the building to inside the building through rated systems, and how do they get from floor to floor, and all of these other things. And
Mm-hmm.
there's ways of obviously going out to the building and walking through it physically and doing that. Sure, that's primary number one. But if you think about it, like here we are training new people or things like that, and you have fire departments that have all these different assets of like all these different buildings in a downtown Manhattan or something that they have to service. To be able to understand digitally like where you're going, or be able to almost if you think about like the movie Enemy of the State or something like that, where somehow they had like all of these 3D images and all of these like floor plans of all these different buildings that we know didn't exist at all.
You're
right?
bringing people's nightmares.
Exactly. But I mean,
to
they're
the
just like,
surface right now.
turn left, go to the elevator lobby and turn left, and you'll see,
Mission Impossible.
you're just
Yeah.
like,
Right.
first of all, those 3D assets didn't exist, so we know that
Movie magic. Right.
movie magic, great. But now movie magic is becoming reality. And
Yeah.
if you think about it, if a fire service has that kind of technology, and you basically have a heads up display within their helmets or something like that as they're traversing through, especially in things like smoke filled compartments or something like that, or flames or something, and you're just like, there's beyond this smoke is another compartment that you're going to need to check.
But
I mean,
you
there's-
also can't see all the junk in between you and that wall that's in the digital model.
well, true, but I mean,
like the chairs and desks and stuff.
yeah, that's yes. Well, I mean, but if you just have a heads up display of saying, okay, I know that there's another
There's a door
room
over there.
beyond.
Yeah.
I may not be able to see it, but at least by the time I'm, from here to there, at least I'll be able to walk through there and know.
It's
I see
like
the
a
chairs, I see
game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this extra AR reality, the augmented reality overlay over the real world that gives you more information that could be useful for a lot of different scenarios. And So there's like the simulation ahead of time, like you're talking about. You could run scenarios virtually, completely
Yeah.
virtually, but then there's like this augmented, because there's problems or whatever that you have to navigate in real time. That's an overlay over the real world. There's incredible
Oh
possibility
yeah.
here, and at the same time,
I mean, if you think about it,
we're still using AutoCAD.
yesterday I was in the living room and I was going to the kitchen. My wife was in the dining room, which is right in between the two rooms. And she has her phone and she's pointing it towards the dining room table. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she sent me countless of links to all these different carpets that she wants to get for the dining room. And so here she is with her using her phone in AR to just look to see, to overlay and see if like that
how it looks.
Carpet would look in our dining room with our dining room set and the new painted walls that she just painted and all of this other stuff. And
they make it so easy to spend money, don't they?
They do.
These
and
apps.
What was funny is it's like, like Wayfair.com has got their own AR. IKEA has their own AR. I mean, all of these different people
Amazon.
Everybody has their own. How does it look in your room? It's just like, well,
it looks good, right?
Let's find out. You're like, oh. And more and more, that's what people are asking for is like, how is that going to look in my space?
So I think what's super interesting, and I was talking with a friend yesterday about this, is if I was starting a practice today, and I think this is different than 12 years ago in a major way, I would have a completely different tool set. Me, starting with what I know, starting a small firm to practice architecture, it would be very different than the usual suspects of tools that used to be the mainstay of what was in your toolbox.
Because different from starting a firm 12 years ago or 20 years ago, you have a way of using all of these visualizations as a way to leverage yourself in a different way. Because everybody has their HGTV head on, right? They want to see what it looks like. They want to know things before you get a chance to know things, right? And so, they want us to be those mind readers. And though we still aren't mind readers, we can at least use some of these tools to leverage ourselves to be different from those other architects that don't use these tools. And they're all readily available tools. I mean, I remember going on, and I can't remember, it was one of these like fan groups of classical architecture or modern architecture or whatever. And somebody was doing something and they were asking about, well, I wanted to make this change to whatever floor plan or whatever it was that they were trying to do, right? And they're like, but the architect is charging me this much for visualization, this much for renderings, this much for this. And it's just like, and then there's so many different people. It's just like, wait, like this should be standard practice. This is, 2023 or 2022, whenever I was like reading this, and they're like, this should all be free. This is all free, accessible stuff that anybody can get online. And so, this should just be a service that they give to you. And of course that starts its own conversation about like, whether it's readily available or not. Is this like our standard, standard stuff that we provide people? Do we start providing, as you said, now you start thinking about operating the firm completely different.
Yeah.
Like, what do I offer as basic services?
Right. Absolutely. And there are architects absolutely doing that. And so that's why it's even a question, right? I mean, people are saying that because, obviously it's insightful into the pain that they're feeling. Which is like, how come I can't get, right? And that's interesting from a business owner to a client kind of a perspective and in that insight, because if you constantly rely on how we used to do things as the model of how we continue to do things, then of course you're going to say, no, that's an additional service, or it only happens after DD, or no, there's no such thing as like updates to renderings throughout the project. But these are all things that clients have asked for for decades. They
Right.
want this stuff because they're spending the most money on it.
Yeah.
And this is the longest process they've ever been through for anything, right? It takes longer than going through high school to do these projects. Right?
Well, I mean, and
So
if you think about it, I mean,
it makes sense.
and you're right. I mean, because like now with like all of these different plugins for all of the basic tools that we have, I mean, we've got real-time rendering things that we've got that are add-ons to Revit. I mean, I could pull up Revit right now in the screen next to me and show you all the different add-ons that I have for all the different things that I can do, including
Right.
AI, like AI inclusions in some of these add-ons and add-ons to make just things a lot easier. And so there is the ability for us to be able to do that. But because we are in the kind of like traditional practice mindset, yeah, it's just like, oh, I don't normally do this. So like I'm going to have
So
to.
this is where disruption comes from, right? And it's enabled by tech in this circumstance. And I think so just to double down on my tool set would be very different if I started a practice today.
Yeah.
I could probably outcompete a firm of 5 or 10 people by myself with tools that are available today.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by double down. Like I really feel like, and the goal, my goal would never be to like work more even. I feel like I could do that without even working more.
But see, you know, what's
than
funny
a normal
though,
schedule.
but what's funny though is then we need to change the mindset of the people who would be hiring us too, because say you're a sole practitioner who you're competing for a small or medium-sized commercial project, right? But they say, oh, you're just one person. You know, how will you be able to do that when this is a 5 to 10 person firm and they've got the staff to be able to handle that? And, you know, that's when the dialogue, you know, has to happen, that the way that we practice and the way the tools that we have.
I use the word we.
Yeah.
They don't need to know. It's my team. Your team is tech. Your team is computers. Your team is, I don't know. I'm just putting this out there as conversational.
No, I know that, but I'm
not doing this. I do feel like this is a very interesting topic of conversation that architects should be having with each other out loud, because things are changing. The rug is being potentially pulled out from under our feet.
Sure.
And it's not coming necessarily from within the profession, because there are a lot of slow movers, slow adopters, if they adopt at all, that are pulling in the other direction. But again, I do think it's coming from the outside. And I think that's something to be keeping your eye on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both eyes.
Both eyes. Yeah. Sorry. Not just your eye. That was not inclusive. Keep both eyes. 4 eyes. Keep all 4 eyes.
All 4 of it.
Yep.
Well,
happy 12th year.
exactly. Cheers to
Take another sip of coffee,
Yeah,
more
same thing.
caffeine.
Cheers to the
cheers
12th year.
cheers to the 12th year. No promises on 12 more, people.
I hope I got 12 more in me.
Total.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's sitting here talking on whatever platform you're listening to or watching or whatever, or just in general.
I feel you.